Hello everyone, welcome back. Today, we'll be looking at why climate change affects species in the oceans. Before starting, don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on our social networks. Let's begin. Marine organisms produce much of the oxygen we breathe. Their habitat is found in the seas and oceans, which represent 71% of the Earth's surface. That's 360 million square kilometers, and 97% of the Earth's water. Did you know that? Let us know in the comments. Despite their great importance to mankind, the oceans are constantly under threat. In 2016 was published the world's first integrated assessment of the marine environment, also known as the Global Ocean Assessment. The report indicates that there are now more than 7 billion people on Earth. If we divide all that water equally between us, we would only have 1/5 of a cubic kilometer per person. And in 2050, when there is expected to be about 10 billion people on Earth, each person would only have 1/8 of a cubic kilometer. This relatively small amount of water represents the ecosystem services, including food and oxygen, that each person will have access to thanks to the oceans. With data like these, you can start to figure out where we're headed. Changes in the climate means changes in the ocean. Although the totality of the effects of climate change on the oceans is unknown, studies predict, among other things, a rise in temperature, higher sea levels and chemical changes. A 2019 UN report warns that human activities are causing sea temperatures to rise, ice to melt, and species to migrate. Furthermore, there are positive feedback loops. For example, a permanent loss of ice due to warming would release even more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, making warming worse. The first studies of the effects of ocean acidification on marine organisms focused on species that contain calcium carbonate, such as corals, mollusks, crustaceans, and phytoplankton. Ocean acidification could be considered the chemical crisis in global climate change. Along with global warming, ocean acidification endangers marine life and pushes it beyond catastrophic limits. Since industrialization, the acidification of ocean waters has increased by almost 30%. Coral reefs will be among the most immediate fatalities of climate change if we do not act quickly. Although coral reefs represent only 1% of the surface of the oceans, up to 25% of marine species depend on them. But corals aren't the only ones affected. Climate change also alters the movement of water masses from the ocean floor to the surface, causing organisms such as plankton, shrimp, crabs, snails, fish larvae, sardines and other fish that form large schools to change their behavior patterns, altering the food chain of the entire ecosystem. Climate change also threatens the amount of oxygen in the oceans in two different ways. Firstly, warm water doesn't have as much oxygen as cold water. Therefore, as the oceans warm, oxygen levels decrease. Secondly, warm water has a lower density, making it difficult for oxygen-rich water near the surface to sink and circulate. Consequently, the deep oceans face a particularly high risk of oxygen depletion. The increase in sea temperature is also associated with the proliferation of invasive species and marine diseases. The evolution of a stable marine habitat depends on a large number of factors, including the temperature of the water. The increase in the temperature of an ecosystem can favor the entry of foreign species or bacteria that in the past had been excluded. This circumstance can force the migration and even the extinction of one or more species. Rising sea temperatures have other important consequences, such as the tropicalization of marine communities and the arrival of invasive species that displace local organisms. In addition, organisms with zero or reduced mobility are more likely to die. This is the case of sessile organisms like clams, algae, phanerogams or corals, which also inhabit shallow waters. All of this has a negative impact on human economic sectors such as agriculture and fisheries. Food is also a determining factor with regard to the effect of a warming ocean on marine species. For example, the production of algae, the basis of the Arctic food web, depends on sea ice, so as sea ice decreases, the amount of algae also decreases. This ripple effect affects everything from Arctic cod to seals, whales, and bears. These domino effects caused by shrinking sea ice do not end there. They also provoke the loss of habitat for seals, walrus, whales, and many other species. How much did you know about the effects of climate change on the oceans and the species that inhabit it before watching? Let us know in the comments. We hope this video made you sit up and learn something new. Remember, the effort to save our world starts with being informed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. We'll see you in the next video.